It's too hot out for this flannel garbage. I didn't think this flannel thing all the way through because I have nothing appropriate to wear during the summer months when I have a super positive or super negative review.
Sounds like you didn't think this whole flannel thing all the way through, buddy.
Oh, did I hear something? No, I don't think I heard anything.
A 10 out of 10. Review it again. A 10 out of 10.
Hi everyone, Toothany Hot Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the brand new IDLES album, Joy as an Act of Resistance. This is the latest full-length LP from UK post-punk upstarts IDLES, who dropped an impeccable debut album last year, Brutalism, a record that truly lived up to its name as the band took the bass sounds of very groovy and lyrically dense post-punk music, then turned it up with the highest volumes, the nastiest distortions, veins popping out of it in every direction. I love the savage collision of influences on this album, from Crass to The Fall to Sex Pistols. I loved the gravelly and guttural lead vocals from frontman Joe Talbot, as well as the sticky hooks, the very cheeky, thoughtful lyrics, which a lot of the time were pretty socially charged. I took slight issue on this album with the band's somewhat one-dimensional style, and cloaking some of their politics on the record in some esoteric symbolism, but mostly this thing was a fantastic punk record with a lot of great things going for it. Fast forward to now, and IDLES are following this album up faster than I thought they would, and I wasn't really sure what to think going into the album because I wasn't super crazy about a lot of the teaser tracks on first listen, and I couldn't really glean anything from them as far as an overall direction for this record. However, for the band IDLES, I think Joy is an improvement on all imaginable fronts. The animalistic and throttling punk rock that was on the group's last record is still present, so that carries over. The politics the band delivers on this record are clearer, more thoughtful, more upfront. They are poetically put and really kind of inescapable on this record, as it seems like there's some sort of social ill the band is taking on with each song. Whether they are attacking macho, overly stoic masculinity on the track Samaritans, or media-born insecurity on the track Television. The slower and heavier and more dramatic cuts from the band's last record go over so much better on Joy, as the band delivers more interesting lyrics, punchier production, a more dynamic progression, like on the opening track from this thing, Colossus, which features these super heavy drums, wailing guitars in the background creating a lot of atmosphere, pummeling bass. All of this comes to a really frantic and noisy crescendo toward the back end of the track. It almost reads like something off of Swan's To Be Kind in a way, aesthetically, but the intense run the band plays through on this track is packed into a 5-minute runtime, and the lyrics make for a powerful statement on regret and self-loathing and living in the shadow of traditionalism and your parents. The album transitions next into the track Never Fight a Man with a Perm. With a plain-faced reference to Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walkin', the track is pretty much a straightforward takedown of brainless muscleheads, calling guys who spend every day in the gym hooked up on gear, walking thyroids and catalogs. I also love the song's very slow, heavy, massive, and muscular riffy chorus. The critiques on masculine stereotypes get even stronger on the track I mentioned previously, Samaritans, where Talbot can be heard shouting these phrases, usually meant to make men kind of bottle up their feelings or fall in line. Man up, sit down, chin up, don't cry, grow some balls. I also like the statement on the track of wearing a mask of masculinity and ends up wearing you. And the sound of the track, the performance is pretty brutal with some soaring, very, very sour and abrasive guitars kind of wailing away against a very steady rhythm section. The song I'm Scum is a somewhat tongue-in-cheek self-critique where Talbot portrays himself as being kind of thoughtful and righteous. Someone who seems pretty fair and pretty just, but simultaneously comes off maybe a little pretentious, a little contentious too, lower class. However, I don't really mind some of those characteristics, though. It's maybe why I fuck with the vibe of the song. It just seems like he's framing himself to be someone who is unapologetically not living up to the standards of perfection and traditionalism. At one point on the song, referring to himself as a snowflake and saying that this snowflake's an avalanche. Overall, the song just kind of seems like a lot of very funny right-wing prodding. The bass and drum grooves on the track, oddly enough, are very peppy and are painted with some very colorful and noisy guitars. A lot of the time, it seems like Joe's voice and the guitars are in a constant competition to see which can make the track sound filthier. The song Danny NEDELKO, though, I don't find to be as grimy as a lot of other cuts on this record. In fact, it's pretty catchy and lighthearted by comparison with a lot of the other songs here. It's one of my favorite songs on the album, and it's pretty much a rager about change and immigration in England. It's about unity. It's about acceptance of others. As he goes through a series of lyrics referring to people who he knows personally or people in his family life who are aliens or came from a different country or a different race. The song is actually named after someone who he refers to as his best friend, in reference to him and some of the other foreigners who he's talking about on the track, saying some of my favorite lyrics on the entire record. He's made of bones, he's made of blood, he's made of flesh, he's made of love, he's made of you, he's made of me. Unity! Also love the following. Fear leads to panic, panic leads to pain, pain leads to anger, anger leads to hate. I also love how the band incorporates elements of oi punk into this track with the giant group chanting, ah, yeah, 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 background vocals. Oi does have some pretty blue-collar roots, but it's not traditionally the most progressive section of the punk subgenre, so it's interesting the band are repurposing it for a different kind of message. The song Great is also a blistering critique of the rise of nationalism in England right now, poking fun at Brexiteers and older generations for being unable to accept change, saying Blighty wants his country back, 50-inch screen in his cul-de-sac, Woombic charm of the Union Jack, he cries at the price of a bacon bap. Islam didn't eat your hamster, change isn't a crime, so won't you take my hand, sir, and sing with me in time. It's another socially charged barn burner with a sing-along chorus, which is actually one of a couple moments on the album that involves spelling. There's a lot more spelling on this new album. Why so much spelling? The track Love Song is one of the spacier mid-paced cuts on the record and is Talbot and company kind of lampooning the idea of modern love, modern romance. Not a topic that was all that thrilling on the band's last record, especially the track Slow Savage, which was a little tedious. But this love song here is so much more satirical, so much funnier, and so much more exciting instrumentally, as a lot of what's said on the track seems to come down to this manic devotion displayed through almost completely empty gestures. Look at this card I bought. It says I love you. Also the la 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 background vocals that kind of guide us out of the chorus seem to put out another reference to this idea of insanity playing a role in this love that Talbot is singing about. The song June is the most dramatic, spacey, and atmospheric cut on the entire record. Interesting that they would place it right in the center of the track list. It's another moment on the album where the slow, despondent guitars come together into a barrage that reads a lot like a new Swans album. Some very simple and hypnotic drums thumping gently throughout the cut, some drony keys, building guitars, and absolutely tortured vocals from Talbot, as it's pretty clear he is singing about the loss of a newborn child, a stillborn, finishing the track off singing Baby Shoes for Sale, never worn, never worn. The track does come to a pretty powerful crescendo, but kind of fizzles out afterwards, but it's still an emotionally potent cut on the album, even if it's not structurally the best. Because believe me when I say it is dark. It is supremely dark. The song Cry to Me sees the band changing things up in an interesting way, with them doing like a 12-bar blues type structure, and Talbot is like vocally wailing his way through it. The guitars and the bass are absolutely insane. The track to me reads as like the peak of dark humor on the record. Meanwhile, the song Rottweiler stands out as one of the most fiery closers I've heard on a new record all year. The lyrics come off as some of the most absurd and blunt on the entire record, which is a little refreshing because a bulk of the album is pretty political. That absurdity brutality that was laced throughout a lot of songs on Brutalism isn't quite as prevalent on this new album, though it is nice to get a taste of it here and there on cuts like this and Graham Rock. Instrumentally speaking, the track is fast, it's aggressive, but it's pretty straightforward. However, as the band progresses toward a very noisy and cacophonous finish, the screws on this thing start to loosen, and the performances, the vocals, the tightness of the instrumentation starts to melt away a little bit, and the band starts sounding truly demented. Again, as I said, very powerful finish to the album, and overall I loved this record. Supremely an improvement over the band's last effort. Way more diversity on here, much more in terms of interesting lyrics, electrifying performances. Pretty much everything I loved about the last album, but vastly improved. If I think the band made a huge change or shifted away from something on this new album, there aren't quite as many songs on this thing that dabble in absurdist or self-deprecating humor, but I think the very smart, thoughtful, and well-put politics on this record, combined with the more dynamic performances and the wider diversity of stylistic influences, are a good trade-off. While IDLES still continue not to be the most original band under the sun, they still kind of wear their influences on their sleeve pretty boldly. They're not reinventing the wheel or anything, but they do approach this album with great production, top-notch performances, great tunes, great songs, and a pretty distinct personality too. I'm feeling a light to decent 9 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another review that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, IDLES, forever.